regarding the current spike in all crime across New York State. What do you believe is the cause of this, and what will you do as Attorney General to help stop this?
Sure, there's multiple things. I believe that it's the pro-criminal policies, but it's not just cashless bail, which I support the full repeal of cashless bail. I think initially people thought, okay, there's poor people with misdemeanors sitting in jail. I did speak to sheriffs that believe there was a need for some level of reform, but we cannot have violent recidivist criminals roaming free. So number one, I support the full repeal of bail reform. I'd like to see the discovery reform repealed. I support qualified immunity for police officers. I am against the de-escalation bill that Letitia James put into play. As far as the Attorney General, there's multiple things. Right now, as a candidate, I'm working to get Republicans elected to the state Senate that would repeal cashless bail and other pro-criminal policies. The second thing is I believe that we need to reform the parole board. This is not something I could do, but I would make my voice clear. They need to remove people from this parole board that thinks it's a good idea to let out cop killers and serial offenders of violent crimes like murder and rapes. I also believe now what I could do in my capacity is I could work in conjunction with local district attorneys that want to work with me. I could also, to make sure they have the resources they need. Additionally, I could introduce program bills with the state legislature to try to get new program bills into place that would actually be proactive in trying to resolve the crime crisis. So, but I would use my bully pulpit because, as you see, if you ever see me in the media, I make very clear where I stand, and I believe it's bad policy, and I also believe that it's not just the policy, it's the rhetoric that has caused the divide between communities and law enforcement. And I'm willing to not only push for legislation, I'm willing to use the bully pulpit. Now, my only concern with working with local district attorneys is some of them might not want to work with me, but the ones that will work with me, I'll make sure they have the resources they need.
So question 2, Governor Kathy Hochul will not renew the COVID state of emergency in New York State, but currently New York State is under multiple states of emergency for gun violence, polio, and monkeypox. Do you feel these are being used properly?
No. I think that what Kathy Hochul's seen, well, there's two things. I'll address the public health stuff, and then I'll address the gun issue. Okay. I think what Kathy Hochul, what we've seen now is she was using her extension of the Emergency Powers Act to reward donors, right? And basically has the taxpayers subsidizing her reelection campaign. As far as COVID, which wasn't one of the things you asked about, I believe we're in an endemic. I think the pandemic is over. In any matter, I don't believe the government should be telling people what to do with their own personal health. I believe people have a doctor for a reason, and I am pro-choice as to how someone wants to take care of their own personal health. The problem most politicians won't tell you is that the courts, going back to the 1920s, even on a federal level, have given a lot of deference to local governments when they say, we're trying to stop the spread of a public health crisis or a disease. And what she's done and what Mayor de Blasio did also was they used the Department of Health or executive orders. So this way it gives them the power to do what they want. I know my ticket, we all believe that all these mandates should be. I know where I stand. I don't believe the polio is big enough as the crisis they're making it out to be, nor is monkeypox right now. I think the COVID crisis is over. Now, as far as moving into the gun area, the problem they have on the other side of the aisle from us is they believe in blaming an object over a perpetrator. And I believe that the gun crisis, there's multiple things going on here. The cashless bail law. District attorneys not prosecuting illegal firearm possession to the full extent of the law, where you actually see charges being downgraded to misdemeanors and other charges being dropped to where in some cases people even get their illegal firearm back. I also believe that we have a serious problem since we've closed the mental health institutions in these states. And we've seen that crime arises, especially mass killings, with the deinstitutionalization movement. It's a correlation. And we've put privacy of people who are violent offenders and mentally ill over public safety. I believe that they're not addressing this properly. We've already seen one case get overturned by the Supreme Court. I'm in November, when I get elected, I'll be overtaking some of these cases, so I have to watch what I say because I have a conflict. What I will say is her solutions on gun violence, they're really not serious, in my opinion. So I don't support. I think we have a crime crisis, not a gun crime crisis. So my position is clear. We have a crime crisis. I've addressed what the issues are, these pro-criminal policies, anti-police rhetoric. going after law enforcement harder than you go after the bad guys. And I don't believe any of these things right now are the crises that they made them out to be, nor should they be expanding their emergency powers.
Thank you, Mike. Question 3. Governor Kathy Hochul had took a quarantine bill, A416, that was removed from the docket in New York State Assembly and placed it into public health law. Attorney Bobby Ann Cox sued. Supreme Court ruled this bill unconstitutional. Current Attorney General Letitia James has filed a motion to appeal. What are your thoughts on this, and would you follow through with that appeal when you're elected in November?
In actuality, I have to step into the office and evaluate every case investigation with a clear mind.
Yes.
That being said, I think I've made clear how I felt this governor has handled the COVID crisis and her powers. I just also have to be careful with the conflict of what I'm saying. I'm aware of this case. I also want to urge you that if they've only filed a notice of appeal, they have 6 months to perfect that. And my experience as an attorney is with government agencies, they'll file the notice of appeal. So then the papers say they're going to appeal it. And then the 6 months runs out and they don't secure the appeal, perfect the appeal, meaning they don't actually file the papers to keep it, to argue the appeal. That being said, I have to watch what I say on that issue. I'm aware of the issue. And I think I made clear previously where I stand on a lot of these emergency powers issues.
Okay. Question 4. As you're aware, and you've kind of spoke on this already as well, but many New York City municipal workers, as well as private employers, have lost employment due to New York City vaccine mandates, and have complained that employers are not acting in accordance with New York State Human Rights Act in regards to religious accommodation. And they have also complained that New York State Division of Human Rights has not properly investigated their allegations of religious discrimination. As Attorney General, is there anything that can be done to reinvestigate these claims?
I would be open to investigating these claims because I think we have a problem with respecting people's religion nowadays, whether it's Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Jewish, Sikh, Hindu. I would be open as far as the religious exemption because I do think that many times the courts, if you read the papers, they kind of poo-poo the religious exemption as if it's just, it is what it is. Look, the courts, a lot of times, if it's a life or death situation, they might want to get involved. I mean, we're seeing right now that the strains are getting weaker. All right. The strains are getting weaker. There's many people who have not been vaccinated, who've had COVID and survived. The mortality rate's extremely low. And I think if people have I respect people's religious beliefs. That's just my position. I think we live in a country that people come here to be able to express their beliefs, practice their beliefs. So I would be willing to review anything that people believed was religious discrimination. Some of these are, different types of issues, like, some are city issues, some are state issues, some are federal issues. So, but I'm not, I don't have the same position as if like your religion doesn't matter because I'm the government and I think I should be telling you what to do.
And last question.
Sure.
What do you feel the biggest difference between you and your opponent is? As far as if you take office as Attorney General, what would be your platform different than?
Yeah, the biggest difference between me and my opponent is judgment. She has horrible judgment. She's the chief law enforcement officer of a state, and she says she needs more credible data, but before she'd revisit any changes to cashless bail, more credible data means more victims. She stands by as people are dying in nursing homes. She doesn't open her mouth. She spews anti-police rhetoric and attacks the police while police officers are being injured during riots, and she doesn't even go after anyone who is involved in the riots. Meanwhile, I had prosecutors tell me 80% of the people they arrested were from out of state. She's weaponized the office against other states that are Republican governed states. She's in legal action against Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia. We have enough problems here in New York that have to be fixed. We don't need to be going into other states where, quite frankly, she lacks jurisdiction. There's issues in public housing that I feel you could at least use the bully pulpit to shine a light on. We see about arsenic. Now they're saying that wasn't true. We know there's been a lead cover-up, Legionnaires, no heat, no hot water. We see a failing educational system. She stands by quietly, says nothing. I wouldn't use the office for politics. I would use it to get work done for the people. And what I've seen from her is a complete lapse of judgment, including taking money from the medical answering services company, which is now at the center of a Hochul scandal, taking money from Gerald Migdal after Brian Benjamin was returning the money. That's the individual that Brian Benjamin has been both been indicted. So she has a big problem with judgment. And also she could have spoken up on some of these issues. You're the chief law enforcement officer of a state. I'm meeting cops in their 20s whose dream it was to become a cop, and they've lost their jobs. Yesterday's heroes should not be today's unemployed. And she always drops the ball when she has to stand up for people. When she wanted to run for governor, she knew how to try and take out a governor with an investigation. But when it comes to fighting for the everyday people, she's all talk. She doesn't deliver. And my argument is it's purely about judgment and nothing else.